All right, thanks. Okay, as I said, Brother Bernard, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. This is the second part of a five-part series called Building Within the Matrix, Building Within Project 2025, which is a matrix that they have created. A lot of people didn't believe that Project 2025 was a real thing, but everything they said they were going to do last year, not only have they done, but they are ahead of schedule. So I tell people all the time whenever I'm doing a presentation at an event, um, Project 2020, Project 2025 is here, it's happening. Now, what are we going to do? So, this five-part series is about just that. Last week, we talked about building our own agricultural ecosystem, which is something that we've been working on for a number of years. And this week, we want to talk about security. How are we going to create our own security protocols, our own security teams, and our own systems? Because it's not a matter of if what we build is going to be destroyed, it's when and how they're going to try and destroy it. That's been the history between our people, melanated African descendants, and those who don't have melanin, who kidnapped us and brought us here. That's been the relationship from day one. So they have not changed. So we have to understand that they always have an agenda, and that agenda is not rarely pro us. So I showed this video last week, but for those who did not see it, I'm going to show it again because these two brothers, Brother Charles Barron and Professor James Small, in my opinion, they do an excellent job of stating and explaining the reality of what it means to be Black or of African descent here in America and what kind of quote unquote communities we live within.
We got to understand colonialism. We live in Black communities in America are domestic colonies of a colonial capitalist system. And here's where they get you. They get you focusing on racism. And we have to, but racism is the ideology of capitalism. It is not the system. The system is capitalism, and then you have a socialist system, and communism is the utopian system that doesn't exist. You have communist parties and countries, but you don't have a communist government. So when we look at every Black community, what is a domestic colony?
I'm sorry, Brother Bernard. Can you see it and hear it? Okay.
Yes, I'm both seeing and hearing, Brother Tamani. Thanks.
Okay, excellent.
A colony is when a foreign nation takes over a sovereign state and brings in its military and extracts from its natural resources from that land and the labor, slave labor. That's what colonialism is. So domestic colonialism means that we in Black communities across this country, we don't have anything like Tulsa or Rosewood in the 21st century. There's no Black community where we're in control of the land, the resources, the means of production, all of the social cultural institutions like they had in Rosewood in the 1920s. So now we have none of that. We are over $1 trillion consumer market, and yet we have no community in the country that looks anything like Rosewood or Tulsa of the 1920s. And here we are in 2023. So
let me put a slick definition on it, Charles, Brother Barron. You know, somebody asked Malcolm X, said, Brother Minister Malcolm X, what do you mean by Black nationalism? And to just capitalize what you said, he said, you must control the land, labor, and resources, the economic, politics, and culture where you live. We control none of that where we live. And that just capsulizes it. And right. and when we think of it, here we are expected to spend $2 trillion this year in consumer dollars. Uh-huh. We control no land, we control no labor, we control no resources. We do not control the economics, the politics, or the culture where we live. All right? And then we by definition, we can't even call where we live communities, because communities presuppose that you control those things.
Absolutely.
That's right.
We are neighborhoods in capitalist and colonial communities.
So I like to give that very clear understanding and perspective from these two brothers, because again, I think they do an absolutely phenomenal job of explaining our existence here in America. And we want to tie that to the importance of making sure that we secure our communities, our spaces, and what we need to do moving forward to make sure that we're safe. So as they have us in domestic colonies, it's important that we understand that the quote unquote colony where we live, especially if it's a majority Black space, those quote unquote colonies are getting worse, and they're getting worse by design. They are dismantling the economy here in America and globally on purpose to bring in a new kind of economic and financial system. They are dismantling the social safety net, AFDC, WIC, food for people to eat, housing, jobs. They are doing away with Medicare, medical help and support and insurance. They're doing away with all of that, or they're making it too expensive for average people to afford it. They are dismantling and or changing the education system. They're dismantling the federal protections from the government so that consumers and everyday citizens will be on their own. All of the gains we've made here in America as relates to Black and brown people, they are rolling all of those gains back and giving power to the states. That's why federal protections were so important in the 60s and 70s, because the states had racist leadership. But now they want to do away with that federal oversight so the states would be able to do whatever they want to do. And they are taking more and more money from the poor and giving it to the rich. And it's only been 10 months since Donald Trump and his administration has taken office. Now we have to understand that they are doing all of this for a very, very, very specific set of reasons. We have to understand that they are moving to create a certain kind of society, certain kinds of system that we're going to be on the outside looking in. But remember, all of this stuff is by design. And this gentleman here, Quinn, I think I don't know how to say his last name. I've watched a few of his videos, but he does a very, 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 very powerful job of explaining three very important elements of what they're trying to do and the kind of society that they want to create.
Yeah, I mean, I might have something to say about the Patriot question later, but I think that first, I think it's helpful to kind of dispel some of the fog of war and the sort of chaotic, anarchistic impressions that we're getting out of Washington these days, with a sense of what the actual lineages are of the political projects we're seeing unfolding here. Because I think, and what I wrote about in the piece is, I think there's basically three somewhat distinct political projects underway here that haven't really had the chance to weave together and have the space close to power the way that they have now in the past. The first one is the idea that the government should be run like a corporation, right? There's a kind of a core Clintonite notion here that we should treat citizens like consumers. We should, expose bureaucracy to the same kind of competitive pressures and kind of hallmarking and benchmarking that private companies are. And then you have to go in and sort of act like an asset stripping private equity firm and peel out all the waste and abuse and put back in sort of more efficient processes. That's how Musk sold Doge to the American people in late 2024. And that's actually why even some Democrats were on board with the Doge caucus already in December still. So there's something kind of normal about that. And there's a reason why Musk has been posting pictures of Clinton and Gore saying, hey, I'm just doing that sort of business here. But obviously, things have gone to another level. And the second, I think, strain of politics that's plugged in here is closer to that of Russell Vought at the Office of the Management of Budget, one of the people who was critical to the Project 2025 document. And that is a more often Christian conservative sort of think tank vision of deconstructing the administrative state, not to make it more efficient and to cost cut to get to more efficiency and sort of productivity, but because you think certain things that the government has been doing are fundamentally illegitimate. So there should be no kind of redistributive role for the government. There should be no role covering things like the protection of the environment or the provision of special education or the provision of sort of projects towards gender equity, anti-racism, and things of that nature. So the idea there is you permanently sort of hobble the Leviathan of the state and, you know, hack back some of its capacity, send that back to the states, and produce a government that governs intensively but not extensively. So, you know, border, military budget, maybe federal abortion bans, but all the other sort of post-civil rights, Great Society programs get sort of permanently euthanized. The third strain, though, that sort of gets to some of the more extreme dynamics that people have been picking up on is what I think you can call right-wing accelerationism. So this is a kind of very online ideology, often associated with people like Curtis Yarvin and Nick Land. And there the idea is that you don't just sort of trim the state or kind of streamline it, but you shatter it all together. And so there's a vision of total decentralization of sovereignty back to smaller kind of fortified private enclaves, turning the United States into a kind of a patchwork of fiefdoms or sovcorps, as Yarvin calls them, where people are sort of, you know, opting in, paying to get into gated communities, and then sort of in zero-sum social Darwinist competition with the world beyond them. And that's quite sci-fi and kind of speculative, but at times I think that the sort of sense of panic that we feel is people wondering whether you can just delete all of the kind of capacities of the state and expect to be able to plug them back in at any level afterwards, or if there is a kind of irreversible process of dismantlement happening here.
And so, Professor Slobodian,
So it's very, very, very important that we understand these three very important elements to what they are doing right now. Running government like a corporation, where they want to be as slim as possible, as thin as possible, to make as much money as they can. And of course, the big question is what happens to the individual, to the individual's family, to their livelihood when they no longer work for that quote unquote corporation? What happens when America is ran so much like a corporation that you kicked out of it because you're no longer a part of it? That's the first thing he said. The second thing, deconstructing the administrative state. This is the whole point of Project 2025, giving the president, Donald Trump, control over 15 national departments that serve to make the lives of people better. So they want to deconstruct the administrative state, not to make the lives of people better, but to elicit more control over the society and over the country. And the third thing, which is the big one, is right-wing accelerationism, shattering society and creating private enclaves, fiefdoms, and soft corporations, which is tech billionaires, technology entrepreneurs, billionaires, creating societies, creating systems, creating cities, tech cities that they run, they control everything within that space. You have to be a member or an employee of this entity to live within this enclave, to live within this fiefdom. And if you don't have the connections, if you don't have the employment status, if you don't have the money, you're going to be on the outside looking in. So they are going to increase the gap between the haves and the have-nots, and the America that so many people have come to recognize and benefit from. All of that is changing, and all of that is changing on purpose. Now they are moving to create chaos on purpose, and I want to share with you quickly the author Quinn Slobodian, I think that's how you say his name. He talked about right-wing accelerationism. I want to show briefly an interview of a gentleman, I call him gentleman, explaining what accelerationism is. We have a digital magazine that we put out every week. Every Tuesday, the magazine comes out. And a few issues ago, I have a word of the week in the magazine. And a few weeks ago, I think this was issue number, what the way, 30, this is 36. So this is 2 weeks ago. The word of the day was accelerationism. And accelerationism is a set of political and social theories that advocate for accelerating societal and technological change. Now that doesn't sound like it's a big deal until you apply that to people who want to accelerate society in a fashion where they can create chaos, where they can create civil war, where they can dismantle and destroy things to make the lives of certain people worse, to usher in a certain kind of chaotic movement so that society can collapse because they already think it's going to collapse and they can benefit from it. So that was the word of the week in the magazine, Accelerationism. Now I want to show you a brief clip of this gentleman here explaining what white supremacist accelerationism is. And when you hear this explanation, this is why us being so focused on security as it relates to keeping our people, our communities, our families, our loved ones safe, we have to make sure that we're always paying attention to what's happening where we live. And I wouldn't say just here in America, because as you said earlier, Brother Bernard, this thing is global. We have to pay attention to what our enemies are doing, because they're not doing this stuff for no reason. They're not doing it in silos, and they're not doing it in small spaces. Before I click, well, let me click play real quick and give you a chance to see if you can hear it. Then I'm going to ask you if you can see it and hear it.
Gab, you will start seeing that the majority of white nationalist groups are now accelerationists.
Yes, I'm seeing and hearing it.
Okay, excellent. Here we go. And he just said the majority of white nationalist groups, which are racist organizations, are accelerationists, and he's about to explain what that is.
This is scary because I'll explain to you what an accelerationist is. An accelerationist does not believe there's a political solution to save the white race. They believe that society is going to collapse on its own or from man-made events, and they want to speed it up, hence accelerate it. But their belief system they call siege culture. James Mason is a longtime white supremacist, wrote a book called Siege. Don't go buy it or try to, because you'll probably show up on the FBI's list. But it's basically a lot of interviews.
Google it.
Yeah, I know. Well, you can Google it. No, you can Google it. You know, yeah.
All right. I don't want to get
Just say I'm Scott Payne researching. Yeah. But it's called Siege, and it's basically a bunch of interviews, and he puts it together in a book. But this guy idolizes like Charles Manson, other satanic stuff. But the big thing, the shift is, look at Charlottesville. You had everybody marching down the street with picket signs, yelling racial stuff, and the siege culture does not do that. The siege culture thinks that's a waste of time. You're not doing any good for anything, and you're making yourself a mark, a target. Siege culture looks at guerrilla warfare tactics. We're going to stay hidden. We're going to cause chaos through maybe you kill a lefty journalist, maybe you kill an Antifa type, non-whites, blacks, Jews, poisoning water systems, taking down power supplies, derailing trains, anything to kick off. They may have changed the terminology now, but it was called the Boogaloo. They referred to Boogaloo as the D-Day. And then you hear things like they take the scene in the Matrix of red pill and blue pill, and they use that verbiage. If you're red pilled, you're a neo-Nazi, you're an accelerationist. If you're blue pilled, then you're like, hey, what about your mom, your dad? What do they believe? Oh, they're blue pilled. They're snowed over, which is comical in its own way to me, and it's sinister own way, because the scene that they're doing all that based off of in Matrix is Lawrence Fishburne.
So the idea is that they are wanting to accelerate activities in the country that are going to make it easier for them to roll out their overall belief system that society is already going to collapse. So since it's already going to collapse, let's accelerate it. Let's speed this thing up so we can help it collapse and we can get what we want out of it. And as usual, what they want isn't anything that's good for us melanated African descendants here. And again, if it's happening here, if it isn't already happening in other spaces, it most certainly will, because this thing is most certainly global. And this is why it's so important. This is why it's so critically important that we understand the importance of having our own security systems, security protocols, and security teams in place. Of course, like anything, it's going to take time to do this, and we want to make sure that we are progressively building up to where we need to be, because we're nowhere near that right now. So over the next 1 to 4 months, we want to implement a local security SWOT analysis. SWOT meaning strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Where, as it relates to security, where are we strong in this space where we live? Where are we weak in this space where we live? What are the opportunities and what are the threats? We want to do a SWOT analysis as it relates to security in the next 1 to 4 months where we live. And then within that SWOT analysis, we want to find out what kind of security resources do we have? Who knows how to fire a weapon? Who's law enforcement? Who's prior military? Who knows how to train? Who's willing to be trained? We got to find out what kind of security resources we have, so that can be a part of the SWOT analysis, so we can know what we're dealing with and what we have to work with. And then we want to create a security trust agreements within the community, amongst the community, of what we're trying to do to ensure that we're all on the same page. So we want to knock these 3 things out as rapidly as possible in the first 1 to 4 months. And then we want to move on to the midterm goals, 5 to 11 months, but we want to start training people individually and in groups as to not only how to protect your personal self, your personal family, but also your neighbor on your left, your neighbor on your right, your street, and then your neighborhood. So we want to start training people individually and in groups, in teams, to protect the community. We want to understand the economics behind security. Can we have our own security company? Can we have our own drone company? Can we have our own camera security company? What can we do to generate revenue from securing our own spaces? And we want to make sure that our security systems, our security protocols are multi-layered, because again, it's not a matter of if what we're trying to do is going to be targeted for attack and or destruction. It's when and how, because that's what they always do. So having one layer of security isn't enough. We can't just have a community watch. That's not enough. We got to have a community watch. We got to have armed security. We got to have security vehicles. We got to have drones. We got to have everything we need to ensure that if anything happens to the community can protect itself. And we want to create buyer clubs whereby people pool their economic resources so we can purchase the security equipment that we need as a community to ensure that the community is safe. The long-term goals, 12 plus months, is that we want to have teams that are on patrol 24/7, doing things from a security standpoint to ensure that the community is safe. Because keep in mind, we want to do all of this because the chaos that they want to create, from the president on down to racist, white supremacist, white nationalist organizations, we want to make sure that we are paying attention to everything, because all this stuff matters. We want to have our own institution, our own building, whereby we train our security people, and we want to create community armories where if there is an armed attack on the community, we can have people go to the armory and get in certain kinds of weaponry, certain kinds of defensive devices to ensure that we are fighting fire with fire. We most certainly have people in the community that know how to fire weapons, that might have weapons, that might be prior military, might be law enforcement. But what we don't have are security teams. We don't train together, or if we do, we don't do it enough to ensure that if a team of 5, 10, 15, 20 people come into the space where we live, we can fight fire with fire and protect ourselves accordingly. And there has been recorded purge activity in every major city in this country. And a purge is extreme violence, organized violence on a Black population. That's happened across the board in this country over the past 4 to 5 years. and with this president is only going to get worse because he's giving people free license to be racist and to not be ashamed of it. So how are we going to get to the goals on the previous page? How are we going to create this the SWOT analysis and do what we need to do to ensure we are protecting our spaces where we live? So there are several bullet points that will come out of the SWOT analysis, but we want to focus on the main three of each. And this is not the only three of each, but we want to focus on the main three of each so that we'll have at least three that we're working on. As it relates to the strengths of our local security, again, what kind of expertise do we already have in the community? Who do we have in the community that can train other people in the community? And who's open to being trained? All of those are three main strengths that we absolutely must know in our communities. The weaknesses, we got to know how to mobilize our people because currently we aren't on the same page. We're not organized as it relates to mobilizing. We don't have a group of people that come together on a set schedule to train. That's a weakness. So we got to make sure we shore that up. And the third weakness is that we don't have a security infrastructure. We don't have a security protocol, security understanding, security system, security rules by which we can protect the community. That's a weakness that we have to shore up. Three main opportunities from having our own local security system is if it's our system, we own and control it. We don't have to call anybody else to come take care of us because that security is going to go away anyway. We can take care of ourselves. Again, what kind of security businesses can we start, run, and operate to generate revenue from securing our own spaces? And of course, with those businesses comes the security jobs. And I don't want people to think of security just as an armed or unarmed security guard. We're talking about cybersecurity. Again, we're talking about drones. We could be talking about robotics. We could be talking about AI and or IT. So security isn't just a physical entity, man or woman. Security has multiple layers and can be quite beneficial and lucrative if we do it the right way. And the three main threats we want to look at as it relates to security: the mindset. The most immediate threat that we're going to have to deal with once society begins to collapse and people with money go do their own thing behind their own gates and everybody else is going to have to fend for themselves. The main threat and the first most immediate threat are people that look like us that are causing harm to the community. We have savages and terrorists that live in the community that look like us that are terrorizing the community. So a main mindset, if not the main mindset of a threat, is how these people think, because they think, I mind me, all they think about is themselves, and they will rob, steal, kill, rape, maim, destroy. They'll do whatever they got to do to get what they want. And that mindset is a threat, and we're going to have to deal with it first. Second one is, if there are illegal criminal entities in the spaces where we live, they may not be very organized, but they're going to be more organized in the general community. That's a threat. And of course, if we don't have our own security, then they are going to be able to run roughshod over the community, do what they want to the community, because the community is now organized to protect itself and eliminate these threats that everybody knows exist. But to date, we haven't done anything about them. So as the government is saying, we want to create certain protocols in this country so that we can have more for ourselves. To hell with everybody else. As these racist organizations want to accelerate the tearing up or the falling apart of society, there is nothing stopping them from coming into our own spaces and doing us harm. So we have to be prepared for that. And if we're not talking about it and training for it, then of course we're not going to be prepared for it. So we want to implement the SWOT by organizing ourselves and our communities on the most basic of levels and then building from there. And the most basic of levels starts where you live. Is your home secure? Can you secure your personal self? Can you secure your family? Okay, good. I'm glad you can do that. Is your neighbor on your left and on your right, are they on the same page as you? If not, you need to get them on the same page because you're going to need as many allies as you can get. And again, not everybody is going to be open. Not everybody is going to be willing, but that's okay because we don't need everybody. We don't want everybody. We only want a critical mass that's ready to do what needs to be done. And given the other things that we are doing in the community, like the agricultural stuff that we talked about last week, if we are building relationships by helping people to become more self-sufficient as it relates to food, if we're building a local agricultural system and they are a part of that, then securing that system will make that much more sense. So we want to start on the street level to make sure that everything on that street as it relates to security, we know about and or we're helping to implement. From the street, we want to move to the zip code. There's more people, there's more resources, there's more expertise that we'll have to work with. And from that zip code, we want to move to, from the street to the precinct and then to the zip code. And then finally, from the zip code, we want to move to the largest voting space here in Houston, Texas, in the U.S. Every state has districts, except for the state of Louisiana. They have parishes, but everybody else has districts. So we want to be as organized as we can be from the street level to the district level, and the district level is tens of thousands of people. And the more we focus on making sure that our people are okay, the more we'll be able to make sure that other people in the space are also okay. As we seek to protect ourselves, we can train other people to also protect themselves. We want to mobilize and organize our people to implement power locally where we live, and then run those spaces where we live like small countries. Like I said last week, there's a district here in Houston that's predominantly Black, District D, that's larger than, and this is one voting district in one city, in one state in this country. It is larger than 100 cities. That's how large this voting district is. It's extremely large. If we can learn how to secure this space as it relates to our people here, then we can most certainly build upon that and secure other spaces. And the better we get at security, the more we'll be able to offer out our services for hire and build a business around that. We absolutely want to keep in mind that we are behind the curve when it comes to being organized across the board. We're not organized to feed ourselves. We're not organized to educate ourselves. We're not organized to protect ourselves. We're not organized to create our own multi-million and or billion-dollar entities. We're not there for a lot of reasons, but we have to get there as rapidly as possible, because not only has America always been racist and always been anti-Black, always been anti-melanated African descendant, but all of that stuff is being sped up. And it's being sped up because they're trying to create a new kind of America, and they don't care about what happens to us, the people that they kidnapped and brought here. So we have to make sure that we are extremely organized as rapidly as possible, as we then invest in ourselves, build for ourselves, and then whatever comes out of that investment and building, we reinvest and keep this thing moving so we can do our own thing.
I think Black people and Black Christian nationalism says we have to approach the whole problem in terms of power. Black people have to begin to build institutions. Every institution that exists belongs to white people, was built by white people, and serves the interests of white people. And for Black organizational leaders to be sitting there talking as though they have power, as though they represent something. We want to represent everybody, we want to bring everybody together, we want to build a beautiful America. We don't want to build no kind of beautiful America. We want power for Black people, and we want to fight for it. It's their confrontation and the willingness to do anything necessary to get power. And we got to take it away from white people. White people are not going to give Black people anything. Politically, economically, or any other way, Black man is no longer necessary in America. And the white man is hell-bent on genocide. So we have to understand we've got to build I think.
And again, as I said last week, this video clip is from 1973. That is the Reverend Albert B. Clegg, who was the founder of a church I was an active member of for over 20 years. And that video clip was from 1973. And you can apply everything he said in that clip to what's happening with our people right now, not just here in America, but around the world. So if we don't take everything that's happening right now via Project 2025, what they are doing and what they want to do, if we don't start building for ourselves within this Project 2025 that they are rolling out actively, if we don't learn how to feed ourselves, protect ourselves, generate our own revenue, have our own political machine and apparatus, so we can elect not politicians, but political advocates, if we don't train our children to understand that they have enemies, those enemies seek to destroy them, so you have to build and do your own thing. If we don't do these things, along with the few other key things, we're going to find ourselves not only a permanent underclass here in America, but a permanent underclass wherever our people live. Because again, if it happens here, it can happen anywhere, and it's going to be a domino effect. So this is why I'm having this series of Zoom calls, because there are so many things that our people just don't know. And there's only 2 of us here, and I've been advertising this thing for at least a month. And this is a testament to the lack of awareness our people have. We're not paying attention to a damn thing. You look online, you see people talking about vacations and cars and starting businesses, which is not necessarily bad. We're talking about everything except our survival. We're not paying attention to what white people are doing. A lot of us still think Project 2025 is a hoax. And we don't realize that we're up against it. And we don't have a lot of time. So as rapidly as we can, we got to find people who look like us, who think like us, who are serious enough to do something that matters, that's going to put us in the driver's seat as rapidly as possible, so we can build our own thing by our own rules as relates to somebody else doing something for us. Because if they're doing it for us, it's not going to be the best thing for us. So on that, brother Bernard, as always, thank you for being here. Do you have any questions or comments for me about anything before we close this thing out? You're muted.
Yeah,
There you go.
sorry. I just want to thank you for your time
Yeah.
and for spreading the knowledge and education that you are. I personally feel that we've been strategically brainwashed for years.
Yes, sir.
And like you said, today is a perfect example of where we are as a people, because you speak about organization, but that is one that we're lacking, and it's very key to collaborate. Last week, we had Dr. Kathy.
Karen.
She was talking.
No, Dr. Kathy.
Kathy.
You're right, Dr. Kathy. Yeah.
Yeah, she was talking about her foundation.
Yep.
And I took some time to actually I went to her Instagram page, because she shared the link in the group chat.
Yep.
And she's doing a lot, obviously, trying to do what she can on her side of her neighborhood. But
Yep.
it's all about collaborating, Brother Tamani. And like you said, it's a global effect. And I don't know how or what's the approach as it relates to where you go from here, but we definitely need to spread the awareness. So thanks for your time, and thanks for the knowledge that you imparted through the session.
You're very welcome, brother. And what we have to do from here, we have to talk to people. We have to,
Right.
again, start from where we are and talk to as many of our people, our family members, to make sure that they understand the importance of what we need to do. And then from that vantage point, you talk to your neighbor on your left, on your right, and across the street. And you find as many like-minded people as you can. And if you can find 10 people on your street who understand the importance of security and training and being prepared, then you go to the next street.
Right.
And if you can find 10 more on that street, you got 20. And then you keep doing that and expand out.
Sure.
That is the only way we're going to be able to do it one person at a time, because you don't know what people are thinking until you have a conversation with them.
Right.
And I always say, brother, that everything we need, we already have, but we don't know it because we don't talk to each other. And that's a big problem. And I reached out to Sister Kathy 2 or 3 times, and the last thing she said to me was, brother, good luck on what you're trying to do. I think it's great, but I was only there because I was invited. And I'm like, so you're not trying to work together? And she didn't reply. So I told her, I said, you said a lot of stuff I want to know more about. Because as you said, Brother Bernard, she's doing a lot of stuff. And I'm thinking, okay, well, hell, it sounds like you already have a few boxes checked.
Yeah.
Let me know what I can do to check some more boxes, and we can continue to move forward. But it doesn't seem like, for whatever reason, that she's not trying to collaborate, which is crazy.
Yeah,
because everything she
wasn't here.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Everything she said on the call was, us, our, we, let's, blah, blah, blah. But that's sadly, that's not uncommon, that you have someone that will talk very black on a call. They say all the right things on the call, but when you talk to them after the call, I'm good. And that's the problem. And that's why we're going backwards. So as always, brother, again, thank you for being here. Next week's Zoom, I think, is economics and finance, because none of this matters if we don't have any money. And we have to find a way to generate, and I'm not talking about mom and pop operations. We got to generate millions, because it's going to take millions to build what we need to build. And we have the pieces for it. We just have to bring them all together. So thank you for being here, brother. Hopefully you can make it next week. If you can, bring someone with you, and we'll continue to build. We'll continue to collaborate, because no one is coming to save us, but we don't need anybody to save us. We can save ourselves if we just find the right people. So thank you again, brother, and I will most certainly be in touch.
Thanks again, Brother Tamani. Take care.
Take care. Tell Brother Lewis I said what's up.
I will.
All right. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.